feel like the Nissan Z appeals to people's emotions. It appeals to people's sense of nostalgia, but it also has to fit into my everyday life. As an enthusiast dad, that's important. I need this car to be both fun, but also perform certain sort of tasks and duties. So let's have a battle today, one between the head and the heart. And let's see if the new Nissan Z fits into my life, and let's see if it fits into my life as well as its chief rival, the Toyota Supra. So let's start with the heart, of course. And the heart of this 2023 Nissan Z is a twin-turbo V6, making 400 horsepower and a healthy 350 pound-feet of torque. And that is running through, in this case, a 9-speed automatic transmission. I've been lucky enough to drive now both the 9-speed automatic Z as well as the manually equipped Nissan Z.
Kind of a big deal.
If you'd like to see me drive the manual transmission Nissan Z on the tail of the Dragon, check the description of this video. 400 horsepower is a healthy number, and this V6, in typical Nissan fashion, makes some kind of cool throaty noises. But torque is what really gets you moving, and 350 pound-feet of torque is enough, but it's not exactly enough to set your hair on fire.
With your hair on fire, you know that.
Here, take a look. See, there's a solid shove from the V6, but it's not insane. It's not like a hammer. Also, the responsiveness is not quite the same as it is in the Supra. The noise is a lot louder though. And whether you're in regular mode or sport mode, the 9-speed does a decent job. It's fine in regular mode, just sort of regular automatic. Here it's trying to hold the gears, it's trying to rip off those shifts. I will say I noticed that in manual mode, where you're using the paddle shifters, it is noticeably better in terms of like the enthusiast experience and the sporty experience. In sport mode left to its own devices, it's fine. It's nowhere near as good as the ZF 8-speed and the Supra, but it's definitely fine.
We're all fine here.
So if the powertrain of the Nissan Z is enough to appeal to your heart, the styling of the new Nissan Z might push you more towards irrational love. I said it in my first look at the Nissan Z when we were up at the tail of the Dragon. This thing looks way better in person than it looks in pictures. And I'm not just saying that. Pictures just really don't do the Nissan Z justice, and the coupe profile in person looks fantastic, but that's not what gets me in terms of styling. It's this angle. I can live with the gaping front end because of this angle. The Z32 300ZX is one of my favorite cars of all time. And if you don't know Nissan nomenclature, that was the 300Z that debuted around 1990. I remember seeing that car at the Atlanta Auto Show when I was in like 4th grade. It looked like a freaking spaceship, and the new Nissan Z does an excellent approximation of that car's rear end. So yes, I am irrationally in love with this angle. People seem to agree. I was passed by one Nissan 370 driver who was hanging out of his driver's side window giving me a double thumbs up, which that doesn't really seem safe. Yeah, don't try that at home. But let's not forget the head, because I'm almost 6'6", and so being able to fit inside of a fun car is a big priority for me. As you can see, I fit in the new Nissan Z about as well as I fit in the Toyota Supra, but the cabin in the Z feels a little bit roomier to me, even though they technically basically have about the same measurements. I did have a little bit more trouble getting the Nissan Z's seat adjusted properly for me. My scoliosis-riddled back appreciates a good adjustable seat, and the Nissan Z's seat only has power front and back, and the backrest going forward and back. These adjust some of the angles, and it's just okay. To be fair, I have the same problem in the Toyota Supra, it just manifests over a longer period of time. Since we are using our heads though, there is another way in which the Nissan Z is quite a bit more livable than the Toyota Supra. Also, from a comfort and convenience standpoint, and I might be hallucinating here, but I wanted to mention this while I was behind the wheel so you can actually see me physically. The Supra and the Z have very similar measurements in terms of space. I can fit in both of them, but there's this impression of spaciousness, this like illusion or mirage of spaciousness inside of the Z that I'm not getting in when I drive a Supra. And I think maybe the center tunnel in the Supra is a bit higher. The dash might be more present right here. I'm not really sure. From a driving perspective, they're very similar, but there's some kind of airiness in the Z's cabin. It also could be the headroom. I feel like I have a little bit more headroom in here, and I mentioned that in the Supra, as a passenger, I kind of don't fit, but I do in the Z. So I just wanted to throw that in. If you're tall like me, there's this feeling of spaciousness in the Z that might not be equivalent in the Supra. All right, so we've picked up some logic, we've lost a little passion, but just look at this back end.
Behind.
Cargo space between the Nissan Z and the Toyota Supra is kind of a wash in this case. You get a bit more space under the rear hatch than you do in the Supra, but it's not like enough to be significant. And I'm only pointing this out because I have one, but you get way more space under the rear glass of a C5 or a C6 Corvette. Also a C7 Corvette. I'm just saying.
It's true.
And you know, I've heard some criticism about the Nissan Z's interior, but I'm not really all that sure that it's entirely warranted. The materials in here are pretty much fine. You get wireless CarPlay, you get heated seats, you get a backup camera with proximity sensors, just like you do in the Toyota Supra. The backup camera is crap though, and the 12-inch digital gauge cluster is more or less the same one you get in the Nissan Pathfinder, so that's kind of lame. Well, to be fair, the Supra's gauge cluster is also pretty blah.
Am I getting catfished here, or?
The infotainment system is Nissan's generally excellent 9-inch unit that I like a lot. It connects really fast to wireless CarPlay and it works really well, but other than these dash-topping 3 gauges, sort of like harkening back to the old school Zs, and this pretty great steering wheel, there's not a whole lot to really distinguish the Z's interior. You also get these not super cool looking climate control dials, which it's automatic climate control, but it's not like dual zone climate control or anything like that. Seems like it could be a little bit better for over 50 grand. Basically, it's doing okay in terms of head in here, but it's not quite giving you as much heart as the exterior styling. But not on the performance handling road, which is where I am now. It's my little road course in the woods here. And it's not as sharp as the Supra. The driving modes don't really change much, but you get a mix of both. You get a little bit of sharpness and a little bit of compliance, whereas the driving modes in the Supra go from harsh to harsher. This goes from sort of comfortable to a little noisier. It does sharpen up throttle response though, that is noticeable. But it's not like a massive difference. Steering's a little heavier and quicker. We'll go around and back again. The main thing is on the performance handling road, it doesn't shatter your spine. Over some of these bumps, especially the ones we're about to go over the opposite way, the Supra is stiff, really stiff. This is not like that. You get a lot more of that cabin noise in sport mode though. I don't know how much is artificial and they're piping it in, but it's kind of fun. See, on the performance road, I would say the Z is a little bit more deliberate, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's some harshness in the Supra that's not present here. Some of these bumps like that one there in the Supra, that would hurt, and the Z, you don't even feel it. Yeah, the steering in sport mode is noticeably more accurate. That bump back there is just so much more livable with this. You feel like the mass is a little bit more in the Z as compared to the Supra though. The ride quality is a noticeable improvement. It's a lot more livable than the Supra. You're going over a road like this, kind of a Georgia back road, and it's nowhere near as harsh. It's compliant even, it's more comfortable. It kind of reminds me of a really firm, well-tuned sports sedan, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, to be honest, I think this is really nicely tuned. I think that Nissan might be being a little more realistic about its daily use, but so are some of the dynamic dynamic inputs, like inputs from the brake and the steering and the throttle. Let me give you a couple of examples. The brake pedal is fine in terms of stopping power, but it just doesn't have that firmness that you want in a sportier car. It's a little bit mushy, but when you stomp on it, this thing will stop. The steering, similarly, I have it in sport mode right now. It weights it up a little bit. It makes it a little touchier off center. There's not a ton of feel. I don't mind the steering too much, honestly. It's the throttle pedal calibration that really kind of bugs me a little bit. So in normal mode, I feel like there is like a few millimeters of pedal travel before the response kind of kicks in. I know you'd become used to it if you own this car. I'm sure you would, but it's just one of those weird, like, kind of irritations. It's just kind of odd in a car with this kind of performance. Now, I will say in sport mode, which I'm in, you push down and it's more progressive. There's more of a response. So I'm not really sure what's going on there in regular mode, but when you pull away from a stop, you are actually depressing the pedal before something happens. So we've talked about passion, we've talked about practicality, and now it's time to talk about price and competitors. The new Nissan Z, as you see it here, will set you back approximately $53,670. But if you skip this particular Nissan Z's gorgeous blue paint, you can actually have it for closer to 50 grand. That's a substantial savings over the Toyota Supra, which in its loaded automatic form costs $56,000. It also undercuts similarly performing Ford Mustangs, and I'm not entirely sure that the type of people that are shopping Ford Mustangs are cross-shopping Nissan Zs. A used C7 Corvette will put this thing on the trailer, but with the used car market still kind of being bonkers, I'm gonna let that one be for now. In some ways, the Nissan Z balances the head and heart equation pretty perfectly. There's no denying the nostalgic styling and the powerful engine, but it's also more comfortable and more livable than the Toyota Supra. It really just kind of has the ability to chill out more than the Supra does.
Chill!
So should you buy one? Should you buy a new Nissan Z over the Toyota Supra? Well, the Z has one more trick left up its sleeve that the Toyota Supra just doesn't have. The Nissan Z starts at $40,000 with this engine. The Toyota Supra, on the other hand, starts at 44 grand with a turbo 4-cylinder. Look, if you want the better sports car, you should probably buy the Toyota Supra. But if you want the better car to fit into your life, you might be happier with the Nissan Z. At the end of the day, it's your decision between your head and your heart. Oh, which one would I buy? Which one would I spend my money on? I'd probably have the Toyota Supra, mainly because I'm an asshole.
You're damn right.
Guys, if you'd like to see more about the Nissan Z or the Toyota Supra, check out my videos in the description of this video or click on one of the links that's probably floating around me right now. Subscribe if you'd like to stick around the channel, and like this video if you're currently having a war between your head and your heart about your next vehicle purchase, all right? And until next time, I'll catch you in the next review, all right? Peace. Airplane should be blasted out of the sky. That's a new song I made up for YouTube filming. Guys, if you'd like to see more about this car approaching me for some reason, why would you do that? Why would you do that? There's 4 other parking space aisles that you could have driven down, and you could see the Z perfectly well from that one over there. But you're gonna drive right past me here, and there are baby shoes in the road. That's a little creepy.